Today we're going to read Chapter 7 of Gasping Garbage. Chapter 7, A Teeny Tiny Case. Business was slow. Doyle and Fossey, science detectives, hadn't had a case in a week, not even a phone call. The word on the streets was that Frisco was slashing his prices. No interest, no payments till next year. But that was just a rumor. If truth be known, Frisco was grounded. No phone calls, no TV, no computer, and above all, no science for a week, screamed his mother. Not until you stop testing your hypotheses on your little sister. Rumor or no rumor, Drake didn't let slow business keep him from science. And on this particularly pleasant afternoon, he was smack dab in the middle of a scientific breakthrough. The solution in the beaker churned and bubbled, smelling like stinky cheese on a summer's day. The phone rang. Drake put his experiment aside. Business was business. It paid the bills. Breakthroughs would have to wait. Besides, he was feeling a mite queasy from the smell of stinky cheese. Doyle and Fossey. Nothing. Doyle and Fossey, Drake said again. Finally, after what seemed ages, a tiny voice spoke. Drake? Speaking. Who is this? It's Lily. Lily Crump. Lily Crump was the teeniest girl in the 5th grade. Even her voice was tiny, more like a squeak. Oh, hi, Lily, Drake said as he pushed up his glasses. Now speak up. What seems to be the problem? No problem, really. You see, I've just received an anonymous love letter, and it's my very first love letter ever. I need you to help me find out who it's from. I'm desperate. Normally, Drake didn't take cases that involved love. After all, he couldn't measure love. He couldn't even put it in a test tube. But business was business, and it paid the bills. Check, he said. I'll be right there. Click. Drake phoned now. My breakthrough on how to make the stink out of cheese will have to wait. Meet me at Lily's house right away, Scientist Nell. We've got a desperate case to solve, and we're desperate. Right. Click. At Lily's house, Drake and Nell examined the letter. They held it up to the light. They sniffed it. They peered at it through their magnifying glasses. Dear Lily, you are pretty. I like the way you comb your hair. You got nice front teeth. Love, your secret admirer. P.S. It's okay that your voice squeaks. Charming, said Nell. Astonishing, said Drake. Naturally, you would want to know who sent this to you, added Nell. Where did you find it? I found it in my desk after I came in from recess today, said Lily. Drake pushed up his glasses. I had a similar case once. I know just what to do. First, Nell and I will need to return to the lab. I'm afraid we'll have to take the letter. Evidence, said Nell. Lily nodded. I understand. Scientist Nell and I must conduct further analysis. Expect our report within 24 hours, Drake said as he rushed out the door. Back in the lab, Drake pulled a book off the shelf. He flapped through the pages until he found the right chapter. Anonymous Letter Detection. What to do when your love life is sinking fast. After they finished reading the chapter, Drake and Nell looked at each other. Looks like we'll need to go into action, said Drake. Check, answered Nell. Tomorrow at school, we'll gather more evidence. The next day, Drake and Nell sat on the grass during recess. Between them lay a mound of assorted pens, each one carefully labeled. How did it go? Asked Nell. Did you have any problems getting pens from everyone? Only from Baloney, answered Drake. He pushed up his glasses. When I asked to borrow his favorite pen, Baloney sat on me and threatened to squeeze my eyes out. Fortunately, when he left, his pen was laying on the floor beside me. Wow, whispered Nell. The dangers of science. Baloney was the biggest kid in the 5th grade. Even his elbows were big. His real name was Bubba Mahoney, but everyone called him Baloney. Usually, Drake used his good scientific sense and stayed away from baloney, but business was business. Drake knew that a good scientist must put aside his emotions and stick to his goal, even if it means being sat on. Now, said Drake, it is obvious to me that since the letter was written in black ballpoint ink, we can immediately remove all the pens that aren't black. How many does that leave us? A moment, please. Now tested the pens on a piece of scrap paper. Out of the original 28 pens, we are left with 19. 9 down, 19 to go. Affirmative. Once school was out, Drake and Nell rushed to the laboratory. All afternoon they worked. They cut long strips of paper. They labeled each strip. Elliot Zelder, Nell wrote across the top of one strip, using the pen labeled Elliot Zelder. On the bottom of the same strip, she drew a heavy dot. Baloney, wrote Drake on another strip with Bubba Mahoney's pen. James Frisco, Nell wrote with Frisco's pen, and so on. When all the strips were labeled, they hung the bottom of each strip in separate beakers of alcohol. Finally, they cut a strip from the love letter. At the bottom of the love letter strip was the heart, drawn in black ink. They suspended the ends in another beaker of alcohol. And then they waited and waited and waited. Hot chocolate? Asked Mrs. Doyle as she peeked into the lab. No thanks, said Drake. Just muffins. Coffee. Decaf. Black, said Nell. Affirmative, replied Mrs. Doyle, and soon she returned with muffins and a steaming cup of coffee. Then, as Drake and Nell watched rainbows of color slowly creep up the strips of paper, purples, reds, golds, pinks, and blues, it was really quite lovely. Finally, Drake and Nell compared the different strips to the strip cut from Lily's love letter. Analysis complete, said Drake. Out of the 19 strips were tested, only 2 matched the ink in the love letter. Nell scratched her head, obviously thinking hard. One of the matching strips belongs to the spelling bee champion, and the other love letter was filled with spelling errors, so it couldn't possibly be him. Which means that Drake and Nell gasped with surprise as they read the name on the last matching strip. We found our man, they said together. And that is the end of chapter 7.